Uh, Hello, world. Warmest welcome to World Humanitarian Drive's Inspiring Millions show. This is the show where we celebrate brilliant minds from around the world who share with us their story, one story at a time. It's our 65th episode, ready to stand for causes you believe in. Our special guest is Tan Sri Lee Lam Thye, former member of parliament, activist, social societies and civil rights movements, humanitarianism, volunteerism, and freedom, peace, harmony unit. We'll get to know his inspiring story in a short while. Thank you for joining us live or on replay. I'm Viva Andrada Uflin, your host and global media relations of World Humanitarian Drive. World Humanitarian Drive, also known as WHD, is an international NGO founded in Croydon, UK, by British Indian global peace activist, entrepreneur, writer, Dr. Abdul Basit Saeed. The primary vision of WHD is to promote peace, education, and trade harmony initiatives globally among everyone across the world, regardless of race, gender, religion, or nationality, living as one family. WHD is striving for humanity. This Inspiring Millions show is your show. As always, we encourage you to engage and interact with us. Please help us spread inspiration to the world by sharing this link. Join our discussion by putting in the comments box your comments, greetings, or questions that you would like to ask our guest, Tan Sri Lee. We would love to read them later on in the show. Tell us how you are and where you're watching this. Wherever you are in the world, let us keep you company and brighten your day as we share love, peace, and goodwill. We're in the month of May. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. To give inspiration to the world, we have with us today an upstanding public figure, Mental Health Promotion Advisory Council member in Malaysia. He has spent decades serving the nation as a teacher, unionist, politician, a leader of several NGOs, and writer. He received 6 honorary doctorates from public and private universities, described by Malaysians as extraordinary, a living legend. Let's all welcome the distinguished, multi-awarded, multi-achiever, a truly inspiring humanitarian, Tan Sri Datuk Lee Lam Thye. Selamat datang, terima kasih. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us today. How are you, Tan Sri Lee?
Yeah, hi, Viva. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon to share with you my thoughts and my aspirations. I think with regard to this Inspiring Millions show. And I would certainly like to extend my appreciation, I think, to the founder of WHD, Dr. Abdul Basit Said, for having started this NGO, which I believe is a very important forum for people all over the world to share concerns, to share the views and aspirations of so many out there in various parts of the world who will be able to contribute towards inspiring people all over the world.
Thank you so much, Tan Sri Lee. Before we begin, we would like to thank the ever hardworking and resourceful WHD Secretary General, Professor Dr. G.P. Doraisamy, for arranging this discussion with our very distinguished guest. So let's get started. Could you please give us a backstory? Could you please introduce yourself to the world and share a brief story about you and your background?
Yeah, well, I'm a Malaysian. I was born on the 30th of December, 1946. So this will give you an idea of how young I am. I'm already above 75 years of age. And I came from a very poor family. I was born in a small town in Menglambu, which is in the state of Perak. And I was brought up in a Christian missionary school. And I completed my senior Cambridge examination. And after that, well, due to the fact that I came from a poor family. Well, I had to do my part, to support my family's the income, and I started work as a temporary school teacher, and eventually, as I said, I got myself involved in the trade union, just a movement. In fact, I worked for the National Union of Commercial Workers, which at that time was the third largest union in the country, in Malaysia. And after that, after a period of 2 years in trade unionism, I was then recommended to stand for the general election. That was way back in 1969, which was the first general elections that I participated. And at that time, I remember I was only 23 years old when I started getting involved in politics. And with the support of the people, well, and also the party that I represented, I got elected as a state legislative assembly member in 1969. As I said, at the age of 24, and then I continued my political work, and 5 years this later, when we had the general elections again, well, I stood for Parliament this time, and in 1974, which was the first parliamentary elections that I participated, I was elected as a member of parliament for Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur, incidentally, is at that time and even until now the capital, the capital of Malaysia, the national capital. And then in 1974, when I got elected, well, I continued, my political just a career, and I stood for the subsequent elections. And all in all, well, I would say that I participated in 4 parliamentary elections from 1974 till 1990. And after having served my 4th term, I was indeed very pleased that I was able to do something to help, my constituents, to help the people who needed help. And I did my best to really serve the electorate, to serve the people who elected me into office. And then after a while, as I said, after I completed my 4th term elections, well, I decided, due to personal these reasons, I decided to call it a day. And I decided to retire from politics. And although I retired from politics, I did not retire from my love to serve the people and the country. And I continued my service through various non-government organizations. And from 1990, even until now, right at this moment when I'm talking to you, I am still serving the nation in various capacities. For me, as I said, to me, serving the nation is something which I'm indeed very proud of, because in the first place, as I said, even when I was, at a young age, I always thought that I would like to do something, for the people and for the country. And so, as I said, my involvement in politics and also subsequently in all the non-government organizations was really not a surprise to many Malaysians, because they knew that I was someone who was really very dedicated to what I wanted to do. Now, the most important thing is this, as I said, through the various NGOs which I served after I retired from politics, I found that NGOs indeed is a very good the forum for me, really to bring out, the people's issues, the people's problems, and also at the same time, to give my views on a wide range of issues. But of course, my focus has always been on the subject of safety and health, and the environment, and also on the subject of the mental health. So as I said, it's indeed my just pleasure to say a little bit about my background in order to give, I think, millions around the world to understand me, to know something about me, and also perhaps I think later on in the course of our conversation, I should be able to discuss a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Humbling beginning. Malaysia is fortunate to have you serve the people. Tan Sri Lee, in the last 2 years, 2020, 2021, the whole world was badly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic that caused so much untold, shocking destruction to the health, economy, social, and well-being of humankind and humanity. Could you please share your opinion and experiences in how Malaysia navigated and overcame these difficult times?
Well, I think this is a very important just a question, and I'm indeed happy to be given this opportunity to share with millions in the world about what Malaysia has done in regard to dealing with this global pandemic. Now, as we all know, Malaysia, like many other countries throughout the world, in fact, no country is spared, when we had to face this pandemic. And in the case of Malaysia, we were not spared the destruction, the death, and the severe disruption of health, economic, and the social life of the people. And during the last 2.5 years, we in Malaysia, just like many countries throughout the world, the people had to face various problems, various issues, and there were many people who were out of business. There were many people who were out of jobs. There were people who were out of employment, because of the pandemic. Our hospitals were overwhelmed. Our frontliners were exhausted from overwork. Our schools were closed. Our businesses shut down, and our movements severely restricted. The life as we knew before was simply vanished, and the people were bewildered, and there was no light at the end of tunnel at that time. So almost 24 months this later, we are now slowly returning to pre-COVID level, although we are not yet completely out of the woods. So how did Malaysia manage to navigate and overcome these difficult times? It was not easy. It was not easy, certainly. It was very difficult because we did not know everything that we needed to know about the virus. It kept mutating. It kept moving the goalposts. It would strike at random. But we finally managed, and we did through the Malaysian spirit of caring for each other. While I accept the fact that the government, especially the Ministry of Health, all the health, the officials, the personnel, the doctors, the nurses, while they were all actively involved in the frontline work, to help those who were affected by COVID. But at the end of the day, what is really important to me is empowering the people to take certain initiative. And this is what we have achieved in terms of working together. The people giving their support to the authorities, the people working with the Ministry of Health to finally deal with just a problem. So I would say, just in short, I would say that although, as I said, we have managed to go through 2.5 years of difficulties and hardship due to the imposition of the movement control order. We call it in Malaysia the movement control order, the restrictions and so on. And also compliance with the standard operating procedures making sure that we put on our face masks, making sure that we carry hand sanitizers, making sure that we try to just keep ourselves, at a comfortable distance in order not to be affected. But as I said, after having gone through all this, we are happy to know that our country is slowly but gradually returning just to normal. But as I said, we have not completely out of danger yet. I mean, we still have to live with COVID, but the important thing is this, that we have learned, how to deal with this problem, and we are fully aware that in the coming years and the time to come, we will have to be more vigilant. We'll have to be more on guard, to know that while, as I said, we have managed to deal with the worst part of the crisis, but at the same time now, we should be able, I think, to readjust ourselves, to reinforce ourselves in order to do more to deal with the problem.
That's true. We still are living with COVID, and empowering the people is also important. Unity, peace, and harmony is an important element in a multiracial nation like Malaysia. How do you handle and address these issues in your capacity as a senior leader and many social and civic activists in Malaysia?
Well, as a Malaysian, I'm indeed very proud that I'm living in a multiracial, multi-religious, multicultural country like Malaysia. Malaysia is indeed very unique in the sense that when we talk about Malaysia, we are talking in terms of a multiracial society. We are talking in terms of a multi-religious society, multicultural, and so on. And as far as I am concerned, as I said, it is this diversity that really make Malaysia a very unique this nation. Now, there are many people who say that by being this diverse, it will be a form of weakness. By being diverse, we will have to deal with many issues and problems. But to me, as a Malaysian, as I said, I always believe that diversity should be our strength. This is the reason why I've been, emphasizing a lot all these years about the importance of unity, peace, and harmony in our multiracial Malaysia. To us, I think nothing is more important than unity, peace, and harmony, because these are the three most important factors that can ensure the success of our multiracial country. Now, as we all know, without unity, without peace, without harmony, no nation would be able, to live in peace and so on. So what is important is this: if we can have harmony, if we can have peace, if we can have unity, then with the collective strength of the people, we will be able to jointly help to develop the country. And I think this is very important, because Malaysia is developing just a country, and we are in fact on our way to become a developed this nation. Of course, not now. There's still many years to come. But I believe that the important thing is that we must establish the fact that in Malaysia, to enable it to continue to progress, to continue to develop, what is important is this: there must be unity, there must be peace, and there must be harmony in the country. And it is for this reason that I really want to talk about, there's a concept in our country, we call it the national, philosophy, which is the Rukun Negara. The Rukun Negara is a Malaysian word. It means our national philosophy. And the Rukun Negara is our guiding philosophy towards building a united nation. This Rukun Negara was in fact founded in 1970 out of the need to rediscover and to re-establish the basis of nation building after the May 13 riots in 1969. I just want to say a little here because in 1969, after the general elections, it was very unfortunate that we had the racial riots. But I think we have already long passed, the period since 1969, and I think that is important that all of us have learned a very important lesson, from the riots, because that was the darkest period, the darkest time in the history of Malaysia. And I must say here that after having gone through that, I think we all realize, especially I think the leaders and the people themselves understand the importance that we must ensure that our country will never repeat the same mistake that we made in the past. And that is, of course, what I would describe as the politics of extremism. Because in our country, we must never allow politics of extremism of any form. In our country, we have to emphasize a lot on moderation. Because to me, moderation is the key to the growth and the development of the country. So in short, I think just let me emphasize, I think once again, the importance of the philosophy, the Rukun Negara, which is, as I said, the purpose is to achieve a greater unity among the people, to maintain a democratic way of life. Number three, to create a just society in which the wealth of the nation shall be equitably shared, and also to ensure a liberal approach to the country's rich and diverse cultural traditions, and lastly, to build a progressive society which shall be oriented to modern science and technology. So this is, I think, very important. This is what the Rukun Negara is all about, our national, the philosophy for nation building.
Thank you, Tan Sri Lee. You mentioned earlier that there was a major Black Day in the history of Malaysia that happened on the 13th of May, 1969 in Kuala Lumpur city areas and other states of Malaysia. And that was 53 years ago. How would you express, account, and refresh on this uncalled for incident in the perspective of a social activist, a lover of peace and harmony in the Malaysian context?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think it was just a tragedy which should never recur, which should never happen again, to our Malaysia, our beautiful nation with diverse peoples and diverse cultures. So what is really important is that we must learn, I said, from the lessons of that May 13, the tragedy. And it is only by realizing the importance of the politics of moderation, the politics of give and take, the politics of mutual accommodation, the politics of mutual respect for one another, then only we can ensure that we will continue to build a nation where there is unity, peace, and harmony. So as I said, we would certainly like, as a social activist myself, as I said, I would certainly not like to see, a repetition of that tragedy on May 13, 1969. That should be relegated, just to the dustbin, I must put it this way. And it is important, however, at the same time, that we must be able to learn from that lesson. And it only goes to show that if we are able to do that, then I think we'll be more matured, we'll be more able to play our respective role in nation building process.
Thank you. It happens to be May 13 today, and people should learn from history. Malaysia Day is celebrated on the 16th day of September every year. So both the state of Sabah and state of Sarawak in East Malaysia were officially declared and recognized as part of independent Malaysia. What is your opinion on this historical event?
Well, first and foremost, I think let me say that as far as Malaya was concerned, as we are all aware, in fact, Malaya was we were colonized at one time, just by the British, and then when this eventually, when we managed to negotiate, with the British to achieve this independence. That was in 31st of August 1957. Now that is actually the very day when Malaya at that time became an independent to the country, free from to the colonial yoke, And as I said, one thing I'm very proud of is the fact that while we talked about independence, we managed to achieve that without any bloodshed, And of course, at that time we had the founding father of Malaya, of our independence, Tunku Abdul Rahman Putra Al-Hajj. And I think he would forever be known as the father of independence. He was very much a peace-loving man. And he was one who actually went, to London, to the UK, and negotiated with the British, with the support of all the major races in the country, the Malays, the Chinese, the Indians. And finally, we managed to secure this independence. Now, that is the date when we became an independent, this country. But this later on, in 1963, that is 6 years after we achieved independence, the states of Singapore, Sabah, and these are Sarawak, which at one time were also under just the British, so they were also interested to become this independent. And so in 1963, that is 6 years after the achievement of independence, the states of these Sabah and Sarawak joined this Malaya, and we just became this Malaysia. So with Sabah and Sarawak coming in, we, as I said, we became an independent, just a nation, with bigger the involvement of the other states, not only Malaya, but we also have Sabah and this Sarawak. This came in, but at one time, of course, Singapore was also part of us. But of course, due to the politics, due to the political the conflict, I think in 1966 or something, Singapore decided to leave. And they left Malaysia, and they became an independent sovereign nation on their own. So this is a bit of the history, the background that I can share with you. As I said, I'm not I'm not a historian. I'm not an expert in history, but this is what I can share with all the listeners about how Malaysia came to being and how we secured independence in 1957 and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri Lee. We understand that you were active in local politics and voted in as a member of parliament. Your track record shows that you were very popular among the elected parliamentarians for your utmost sincerity, honesty, integrity, and uprightness in dealing and solving many sensitive issues to bring about peace, unity, harmony among the multi-ethnicity of Malaysia. You decided to leave politics and ventured into full-time voluntary social activism to help the people of Malaysia. Do you regret your own major decision, and how and what were the responses and expectations of the people?
Well, as I said, when I was serving this member of parliament from 1974 until 1990, I learned a lot in terms of how to be a good elected representative of the people. My most important focus was on the welfare of the people, because I believe that as far as elections are concerned, when the people they go to the polls to elect their representative to be in parliament, their expectation would be to elect someone who can help to serve them, to elect someone who can articulate their concerns, their views, their aspirations, and also at the same time to champion their cause, especially in the area of justice, in the area of this freedom, in the area of ensuring that the people are fairly treated across the board. So when I started off as a member of parliament, as I said, my main concern, as I said, was how I could serve the people well. And I remember at that time when I was an MP, I was approached by various people in my the constituency. I was approached, for example, by the people, the poor people, especially those who these are struggling to make a living. I was approached by the petty traders, the small businesses. I was approached by the taxi drivers. I was approached by the conductors. I was approached by different strata of people coming to see me, to ask me for help. And of course, as I said, I did my best. Although I did tell them that although I cannot guarantee I can solve every problem that they presented to me, but certainly I would certainly like to do my best. And of course, by and large, I think I managed to deliver the promises I made during the election, that the people were happy with me. And that was the reason why at every election, for the 4 elections, the parliamentary election that I stood, every election I got an increase in the majority of support from the people who voted for me. So this itself, I would say it's really what I would describe as a reflection of their confidence in me, as a reflection of their support for me. And as I said, I managed to do all this largely because I was driven by a passion. It's not only a question of trying to perform my duty as a member of parliament. It's not a question of trying to do my best, but I would say it's more a question of my passion. I must say that all those years when I served the people in Kuala Lumpur, I really served them with a passion. And that was the reason why I was able to generate support. I was able to secure their confidence, and I was able to move forward until now.
Thank you, Tan Sri Lee. You were very much active, relevant, and much involved in non-governmental organizations and civil societies in Malaysia and in the Asia Pacific region. Could you please share and highlight some of your specific major tasks, services in the selected social societies and or associations?
Yeah, as a social activist, of course, I had a choice. I had a choice to decide which non-government organization I should be involved, because there are so many NGOs in Malaysia. Just like in most countries all over the world, there are many non-government organizations. And of course, as far as Malaysia is concerned, we have a big number of NGOs, and the NGOs have been regarded as partners of development in the country, recognized by the government. And for me, as I said, I decided to invest. I use the word to invest in in NGOs, which I would be in a position to contribute. And of course, as I said, a number of NGOs came into the picture. One, of course, is the Malaysian Crime Prevention Foundation. It was an NGO that was set up some 27 years ago. And I was one of those who was involved right at the beginning of the organization. And of course, the Malaysian Crime Prevention Foundation was basically involved in helping to work with the authorities, especially with the police, to create greater awareness among the people about the importance of crime prevention. And also at the same time, the NGO was also involved in organizing a lot of programs and activities to give the input to the government, on how the government should address issues concerning crime and so on. And of course, the other organization I was very actively involved was the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH. I happen to be the chairman of NIOSH for 27 years. And I was indeed very pleased that I had the opportunity of serving the institute for such a long period. And of course, the main purpose of the institute was to address issues concerning occupational safety and health, which, as you know very well, is a very important subject, I think, in many countries. I would say it is actually just a global issue. That is the issue of ensuring that the workplace is safe, to ensuring that the workers are safe, and ensuring that the workers are able to minimize accidents at the workplace. And of course, all this came about as a result of the passage of a very important Occupational Safety and Health Act in Malaysia, in the Malaysian Parliament in 1994. And the purpose of the Occupational Safety and Health was actually to impress upon the industries in the country, to impress upon the employers in the country, the need for them to show a greater care and to give a greater attention to the question of safety for their workforce, safety for the workers. And of course, this was done through various forms of industrial safety training for industries. This was done through, for example, organizing more seminars and the conference to generate more interest and discussions on matters concerning safety and health. And this also concerns the question of how do we manage issues concerning safety and health at the workplace, because a management issue is also very important. In any workplace, we all know there are the risks, there are the hazards, there are the dangers and so on. So the important thing is how do you cope with this? How do you manage it? So these are issues which were very much in our mind, you see. And that was the reason why, as chairman of the institute, I was able to give my best, and of course with a passion. Then, of course, there's one very important NGO which I also would like just to mention here, and that is the National Unity the Foundation. I was talking earlier about the need for unity, for harmony, for peace, and the National Unity Foundation was set up, for the purpose of helping to create greater awareness among the multiracial people in our country, the importance of integration, the importance of mutual respect for one another, the need, I think, for us to integrate, I think, rather than to assimilate, and also to promote occupational, to promote national unity in the country. Now, we have a ministry. We have a ministry in Malaysia known as the Ministry of National Unity, and the National Unity Foundation have been working very closely, with the Ministry of National Unity, in working out programs to promote unity among the people. And this finally, Viva, I'd like to talk about one latest NGO which I set up. This was set up just about 3 years ago, and it is known as the Alliance for Safe Community. The Alliance for Safe Community is an NGO which is dedicated, to promoting and working and building a sustainable safety culture in Malaysia. Now, when I talk about a safety culture, I think this is very important because a safety, this culture should involve everybody. It should involve all sectors of our society. And building a safety culture is very important because in Malaysia, I found out that the level of safety awareness in Malaysia is still low, and a lot needs to be done, to upgrade the safety awareness of the people. And so when I started this, we decided to focus on various things. For example, one of the important things is road safety, and then we talk about water safety. We talk about occupational safety and health. We also talk about this mental health, and we talk about community safety. We talk about crime. We talk about drugs and all that. And these are the issues that we need to bring forward to the people to make them aware that these are the problems that they must not get involved. These are the problems that they must fight shy of, because if they are involved, they will have to face very severe consequences. Yeah, so these are some of the work that I've been doing, and it is something which I would say that it has generated a lot of support from the community. I think the Malaysian community, by and large, I think they are fully aware that all these NGOs that I'm involved are NGOs which are not involved in any form of politics. As I said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm no more involved with politics. I've retired from politics, and therefore I don't intend to bring politics into these organizations, but more to focus, on the aims and objectives of these organizations, which I've explained earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri Lee. You're involved with so many NGOs and activities. You're a multi-awarded, multi-achiever. Here's a question all our virtual audience are probably asking right now. How do you do it all? How do you achieve it all?
Well, as I said, it is by no means an easy task, and by no means easy. It requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of this sacrifice. It requires a great deal of determination and commitment. Because as far as I'm concerned, I see, it is not possible for anyone to do anything without the commitment. The commitment is so important that if we are committed to a cause, if we are committed to do something, then we must do it with our heart. We must do it with a passion. And I think this is something which is very much in my mind, when I started to get involved, I think, in all this work. But as I said, it is by no means easy. And there are times when, as I said, I have even to this sacrifice, my meals, even my food. There are sometimes when I go without lunch, when I'm involved with a piece of work is so important. I have to skip lunch and so on. So I think eventually I end up with having some gastric problems and so on. So at the expense of my health too, But never mind. As I said, what is important is this: that I must be able, as I said, to be committed. I must have the passion, and it is this word that I really want to talk about tonight. It is the word of passion. Be passionate in whatever we do. Because with that, the passion, I'm sure it will carry us far. It will go far, and that will help us to secure a lot of success.
So we heard that. We need passion to go far. And then, so now I'm just going to read through the comments of our virtual audience. There's Win Wonderful saying hi, and Tonggi Gra watching from Philippines. Happy
Yeah.
Andrada watching from Philippines. Christine Manlapas from Pasig City.
Yeah.
And Marvi Miang is watching from the USA. So hi. And then Marlon Hechanova is watching from the Philippines. And Oi Chung is saying, I really like watching Tan Sri now live in the IKS office. I am feeling so.
Okay. Okay. Oh. Don't respond to them.
Going back to our messages, there's a message from Kin Kin Lo. Tan Sri has been an iconic activist and always take the plights of the poor, the needy, and recently the welfare of the strays at heart. And Tan Lei Fang is saying, congratulations, Tan Sri Lee Lam, Thye. Proud of you from KL, Malaysia. And John O'Flynn is saying, greetings from the UK on a great show. And we have a question from Mr. Tonggi Gra, and he's saying, very inspiring. He would like to ask you, sir, how is the tourism getting back in Malaysia as the borders reopened recently?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question as far as Malaysia is concerned, because Malaysia, it depends on tourism, a sector, as one of the major revenue earners, I think, for the country. I think for many years, that was before the pandemic. Malaysia is very much a tourist destination, I think, for many of foreigners from all over the world. They come to Malaysia largely because of the fact that they really enjoy our food. I really have to talk about our food because, as I said, we are a multiracial, multi-cultural, and we are multi in so many ways. Even we are multi in terms of food, so many different types of food and so on. And it's always, many people say coming to Malaysia is indeed coming to a food paradise, And so many people, they come to Malaysia is because of the food, and also largely because they like the beauty of our country, the beauty of Malaysia. We have, we have the mountains, we have one very famous, they call it Mount Kinabalu. Viva, I'm sure you've heard of it, Mount Kinabalu, just in Sabah. And in fact, many people from all over the world, they come just to climb. That's the highest mountain in Malaysia. And we also have very interesting and extremely beautiful, there's a diving spots. I don't know whether Philippines, Philippines, you may have your own fair share of the beautiful places that you can offer. But in Malaysia, we have a place called, in Sabah, called this Sipadan, and it's a very famous place where I would say divers from different parts of the world, they come here. And as I said, the tourists, as I said, they like Malaysia, and I'm happy to note that as far as the government is concerned, I think the government has decided, I think, to open just the borders now, starting the 1st of May. We are already, encouraging, the tourists to come, the foreign tourists, and many have come. But of course, as I said, by virtue of the fact that they are here, we have to make sure that they are safe. Safety is very important. That is the reason why I talked about the importance of ensuring that we are able to put across a safety message to the tourists, that when they are here, they must also take extra care with regard to the safety. The safety is not so much about the aspect of COVID. Of course, we all know that I think many of them who are here, they have already been vaccinated, they have already got the booster shots, and certainly I think they feel safe. But what I'm concerned is about their safety when they arrive, at the tourist spot or while on their way to their tourist destination. Because there have been cases in the past where there were these accidents, which this resulted, in the deaths, of some of the tourists. And I think this is something which I hope that the tourism sector in our country, especially the tour operators, they will give their attention to make sure that when the tourists come, they will be given the fullest, just the briefing from A to Z and Z to A, knowing how to take care of their safety, to follow the do's and the don'ts. And I believe that if all this it can be done, then it will certainly help, I think, to ensure that the tourists are safe. Because we want the tourists to come, and at the same time, we want them to leave this country safe. So when they arrive here, they arrive safe. When they are around here, they are safe. And when they leave the country, they are safe. So this is the important message I would like to convey, Ms. Viva.
Thank you so much. And then NP Milio is saying hi. And then Yo Sin Chin has a question about Tan Sri used to be tagged as Mr. Olivetti. Can Tan Sri elaborate on how this came about?
Well, the thing is this, in fact, I would like to mention here that I will be coming up with my biography this very soon. And that biography is about recalling a lifetime of service, my service, to the people and to the country. And one of the things that I did, incidentally, there was something that I left out. I like to thank this Mr. Chin for having raised this question of this Olivetti type writer, because when I started work as a member of parliament, or even much earlier as a member of the state, the Legislative Assembly, at that time, there was, you don't hear such things as the laptop, you don't hear such thing as the iPhone, the iPad, or computer, nothing. So people, what they do is this, in the 50s and the 60s and early 70s, even right 80s, they use the typewriter. And yes, when I became an MP, what I did was, the first thing I did was I went to the shop. I bought 2 portable typewriters. I bought 2 Olivetti portable typewriters. And I used to carry this the typewriters around. I put one, in my office, and then I put one, in the boot of my car. Because why? Because my office, to serve the people is also a mobile office, which means that, at any moment, I can open the bonnet of the car, I can pick up pick up the typewriter, and I can easily, get settled down to a table and a chair and started to type and prepare all the letters that they need, the letters of recommendations, filling out forms. I did all that for them. So that is something which I would say is very, very memorable to me, because I was always known, in Malaysia, if there is one member of parliament who used to carry a mobile typewriter, I think everybody knows. Viva, when you come to Malaysia, you ask somebody, can you remember the MP, in the 70s and 80s who carry a typewriter around? They will tell you it is Thye. Yeah, so this is about the story about my typewriter, which, as I said, I had to use a typewriter because at that time, I said, you don't have all these laptops and iPhones or whatever it is. So it is all the latest technology and so on, which never happened during those early days in the 60s and the 70s. Okay.
Tan Sri Lee, you got tagged as Mr. Olivetti for bringing along a typewriter.
Olivetti.
And then, so Tonggi Gra is saying, sounds like a beautiful country to visit. That's Malaysia. And Ong Yuen Ling is saying, indeed, a beautiful country. Tan Sri Lee, it's Mental Health Awareness Week. what should people know about mental health?
Yes, I'm indeed happy to be given this opportunity of saying something about this mental health. Um Now, mental health has emerged as a very serious, I think, issue, not only in Malaysia, but I would say this globally, because it has been found that many people across the world, they suffered, largely because they had to endure very severe pressure, the pressure at work. They had to endure stress. They had to work under very stressful the conditions. And this stress, it can come from anywhere. The stress, it can come from the home, it can come, from the workplace, it can come, from anywhere. So I think what is really important is we must really take care of our mental health, because if we don't deal with the question of stress in the proper way, we can end up in a situation, I think, whereby we will be very severely this affected by the problems of, number one, anxiety, and also the question of depression. Now, what is most serious, as I said, is the question of people who are suffering this from depression. Now, someone who is depressed is someone, I would say, is looking for help. They will look for someone who can give them a ear, who can listen to them, who have a chance, they have a chance to talk to. Because I always feel, being as someone who has been actively involved in helping to promote good mental health, I always emphasize the need for us to develop a good mental health. Because as far as I am concerned, there is no health without mental health. This is a very important point I want to put across. There's no health without mental health. So mental health, like the physical health, should be regarded as one big component about how do we take care of ourselves, how do we manage our stress, how do we manage the pressure at work, and so on. So in Malaysia today, we have the Ministry of Health, who is actually very active in terms of organizing programs and activities to help educate the people about the importance of ensuring a good mental health in themselves. And one of the important things that I also talked about is the need to have more just the counselors in our country. We need more the psychologists who can offer help when these people are in need. And this is the reason why I've always emphasized to the employers in our country, at every workplace, there must be a counseling unit to provide a counseling to those who are afflicted with mental health issues, mental health problems. And this is something which is important, because if a person is very depressed and no help is given to the person, then he may end up in a situation whereby he or she is likely to think of committing a suicide. And I think this is the worst thing that can ever this happen. So as I said, I think once again, as I said, I would really like to put across the message that we need more NGOs in the country. We need the government to be more proactive in promoting good mental health among Malaysians, to provide counseling, mental, I call it the psychosocial support. Psychosocial support is very important, which must be conveyed to the people. And last but not least, I must also say here that we have in the Ministry of Health what we call it a body which has been set up, and that is the a consultative just a committee where we consult one another on the issue of promoting good this mental health, and it is something that is already being implemented. And this is some kind of an advisory body, consult at the same time also to advise the government on how we should deal with this mental health issue in the years to come.
There is no health without mental health. That's very important. We've got a greeting and a question from Professor Dato Dr. GP Doraisamy. And then he's saying, Tan Sri Lee, you are an iconic, towering leader in Malaysia since the 1960s. You had served as the youngest member of parliament, and then you went into social and civil advocacy and activism. As an advocate with very strong spirit of volunteerism, how is it possible to bring about the three major races, the Malays, the Chinese, and the Indians together under one big umbrella as Malaysians, despite the different languages, cultures, traditions, worships, and schools of thought? How do you foresee the future of peace, unity, and harmony in Malaysia?
Well, this is indeed a very challenging question to me. What I would like to say here is this. I think what we have done so far, when I talk about what we have done, I'm talking about what the people have done, what the NGOs have done, what the authorities have done with regard to the subject of promoting national unity in the country is very much what I would describe as work in progress. It is what I would describe work in progress. Because as far as I'm concerned, if I'm asked as to whether we have achieved the full national unity in the country, I must say very frankly that we have not. We have not yet. But at the same time, I believe that the challenge that we face today is how are we going to get all the three major races. But actually, it is not so much the three major races. We must also talk in terms of Sabah and Sarawak. We must talk in terms of the native just people there. In Sarawak, we have the Ibans. In Sabah, we have the Kadazans. You know? And when we talk about unity, I think we must be inclusive. You know, Viva, we have to be inclusive. We cannot be only looking at unity only from West Malaysia and not looking at East Malaysia, because East Malaysia, they are all Malaysians. So we also have to include them, you know, in this discussion on the subject of unity in the country. So what I would like to say here is this, that a lot needs to be done in terms of setting the right example. And setting the right example is something that our national leaders must do. And what is that? That is to be a national leader in our country, which also includes the government ministers, the prime minister, and so on. It is important that whatever they say, whatever they do, they must always bear in mind the consequences of their actions. For example, if you have someone who says something very sensitive that can incur the wrath of another community, then it will only give rise to another controversy. And then they will give rise to more, you know, this conflict. So what we must do is this, that we must always bear in mind that in anything that we do, we say, we must always be sensitive to the other races. We must sensitive to all Malaysians. And this is something that I've been doing, Viva, all these years. My involvement as a social activist. That's the reason why when I go out to serve the people, I make sure I serve all the races. I don't serve only one community. Every time when I want to do an engagement with the people, I always ask, I said, are all Malaysians there? I want to see all the races together. I don't want to talk only to one particular ethnic group. I want to talk to all the others. So this is something we have to do. So to the national leaders, I say very important, they must always bear in mind that the message that comes from them, the speech that they make, the action that they take, it must be something that reflect the feelings of all the people in the country. It cannot be something that is racial. It cannot be something, that is discriminatory, against a certain group and so on. So I would say to answer the question of this professor, this Durai Sami, I would say that well, we have already started the work. We have started the groundwork to really help to bring Malaysians this together. It is by no means easy, but I believe that what is important is that we need more leaders across all sections of the community to come forward and say, look here, we must speak up for Malaysians. We must do more for Malaysians. We must serve all Malaysians, because at the end of the day, Malaysians are the ones who make up this country, the beautiful, multiracial, multi-religious, multicultural country like ours. And at the end of the day, as I said, it is these Malaysians who will decide whether Malaysia is going to be a success or a failure. But I believe that Malaysians, by and large, they want to see Malaysia succeed. I think everyone in Malaysia wants Malaysia to succeed, and more so after having gone through the pandemic. I'm sure. I think they are all up and about and are able to start participating, in the economic recovery efforts to bring, the businesses back and so on. But I think whatever we do, very important, as I said, whatever we do, whether in business, whether in social, whether in government, whether in NGOs, whatever we do, we must reflect the multiracial spirit of Malaysia. This is very important.
Thank you, Tan Sri Lee. We have an interesting question from Elise Lee. Her question is, there was this cartoon about a landslide that happened some time ago. A house was about to collapse. The house owner said, call Lee Lam Thye, not 999. What was that about?
Well, it is something that is going to appear in my biography this very soon. You see, when I was thinking of working that biography, one of the things that came to my mind, Ms. Viva, is this: how should I make the cover of the book attractive? If I would put my photo there, Lee Lam Thye, people may say, we see him so often, that they may say, well, there is nothing very spectacular about that. So what happened was this: I was going through, my files, going through the records, since 1990, after I decided to call it quits in politics. So I came across a cartoon. This is actually a cartoon which was drawn by a very famous cartoonist in Malaysia, by the name of Lat, L-A-T, Lat, that is nickname, a very famous man. Lat, everybody knows in Malaysia, and he has compiled lots of books on his cartoons. Now, what happened was this: in 1990, as I told you earlier, Viva, when I decided, to retire from politics, because I was quite, as I said, I felt that I already done my part. I wanted to do something else and so on. So I came across this, just a cartoon, and what the cartoon was trying to say is this: that during those years, when I was a member of parliament, every time when there is a problem in Kuala Lumpur, it can be a flood, just floods because of heavy rain. It can be a fire. There's a fire breakout, or it can be any form of this disaster. Every time when a problem happens, the people who are around there, their immediate response is what? called Lilam Thye, because I mean, that to me, I would say that is a form of just a compliment to me from the cartoonist, which itself is a very clear indication or a reflection of the type of service that I was able to deliver, the type of help that I was able to give, and also very important, the perception of the people. The perception of people at that time was, whenever there's a problem, call Lilam Thye even before you call the authorities. But of course, as I said, I always say, well, don't call me alone. As I said, even you call me, I still have to get the help of the authorities to help you, because I am not the authority, you see. But the fact is that I am the mover. I am the initiator. For example, if there's a fire, imagine the number of victims who are involved. They have no housing, no accommodation, and I had to take the various these initiatives to look for alternate accommodation for them. So I'm the one who goes everywhere to knocking the doors of the authority and say, please help, please help, please help. And finally, I got them help. So in the end, the people get the impression, call Lilam Thye. He's the one who helps. This is a bit of the history. This is in reply to Elise. Okay. I think I'm finding this very interesting, Aviva.
Yes, thank you, Elise Lee, for that interesting question. And happy Andrade seeing inspiring show and guest to call Lilam Thye. Thanks, really. Here is our final question that we always ask our guests. What is your inspiring message to the world?
Well, I have some thoughts about this, but I may not be able to, I think, to offer the maximum in terms of giving the right answer. Now, the message that I really want to convey today, to inspire the world through this Inspiring Million show, is that we all know throughout history, the world has faced wars. The world has faced pestilence. The world has faced this famine. The world has faced natural calamities and other forms of miseries. Now, in all these difficult times, we have seen the good people. We have seen the caring people. We have seen the humanitarian side of people the world over. They have given selfless and sacrificial service to those in need of help. And this gives us hope that in times of need, in times of difficulty, in times of hardship, there will always be good Samaritans around. So my wish for the future is that we must continue to cultivate this spirit among the people and more people. I believe in the indomitable spirit of human beings that will help all people in times of need. I believe all the religions profess faith in God and are of service to our fellow human beings. Whatever the problems, however difficult the situation may be, we shall overcome and we shall prevail. And I'm sure in this world that we live in today, we know, I mean, there are so many parts of the world which are having wars and conflict. For example, even right now, we are talking in terms of the Ukraine war. And then we have the Middle East, the crisis. In so many parts of the world, there are problems, there are conflicts. And sometimes I begin to wonder, why can't we have a peaceful world? But at the same time, I must tell myself that, well, to have a peaceful world, you need people with good intentions. You need people, with good values. You need people who really care. You need people who really want to do something to help, the others. So as I said, it's sad that I'm seeing all these conflicts. But as I said, despite all this, we must have faith, as I said, in helping to inspire more people all over the world. I said to come forward voluntarily to perform their humanitarian deeds. And this is the reason why I feel that this humanitarian drive is so important. We need to drive more people with humanitarian ideals, humanitarian objectives, so that they will be able to come forward and do their best to help, as I have done in my past. I always position myself as a humanitarian. In fact, when people ask me, am I a politician? Well, I said, I'm not really a politician. I'm more of a humanitarian, because what I did in the past was purely for the sake of the welfare of the people. And of course, I used politics, to do something to help the people who I need. But of course, now, as I said, although out of politics, I will still continue to do my part. So this is my message to all my friends who are watching this Inspiring Million show. And of course, my sincere thanks, I think, once again, to WHD Global Media for helping to publicize this. And of course, also, once again, my deepest thanks to this professor, Thye Sami, who actually the chairman of the Malaysia branch of this WHD, who actually recommended me, to participate in this just a program. And I must, as I said, I thank him for giving me this opportunity. And of course, as I said, this program would not have been possible, I think, without your good self, such a good host. You are such a good host, Miss Viva. And of course, also with Dr. Abdul Basit Said, who is a founder of WHD. All my best to him, my best regards, and may WHD continue to do programs such as this to inspire more and more millions throughout the world. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to have good people like you who care and helps others, Tan Sri Lee. And we have a message from Ong Yuen Ling. She's saying, thanks for the inspiring message, Tan Sri. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence, sharing your words of wisdom, and inspiring the world with your story. In honor of international recognition for your virtue in persistently serving and inspiring humanity with your noble deeds, World Humanitarian Drive would like to award you, Tan Sri Lee Lam Thye, with an Inspiring Humanitarian Award. Congratulations on your Inspiring Humanitarian Award.
Thank you very much to WHD.
Thank you so much for all your humanitarian works, and here's to many more. Congratulations. We would like to share a quotation by our special guest speaker, Tan Sri Lee Lam Thye. And here is a quote. Would you like to read it for us?
Yes. Well, this is something that I wrote for a recent mental health committee this meeting. And this is how it goes. Acknowledge the importance of mental health for both adults and the children. The modern world we live in presents many wonderful advanced technologies. They also come with a high level of stress, even to children at a young age. Our future is in our youth. We must invest in them. But if the elderly can contribute productively and want to serve, they should be given the opportunity to do so. Lee Lam Thye, thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I think that's all. I think I have, I've said a lot. I think, as I said, I think once again, it's such a beautiful, this opportunity that has been afforded to me to participate in this Inspiring Millions show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion with Tan Sri Leelam Thye, that it motivated you to work on your mental health, develop skills and talents, and share them with others. Here on Inspiring Millions Show, we present you with brilliant people from around the world. So feel free to connect with them on social media, and together, let's make a difference in the world. We definitely all need inspiration, especially in these times. Listening to people's stories enrich our lives. If today's discussion inspired you, please like it, share it, send us a comment. Do share with us your takeaways from today. Follow us on our social media accounts. Click subscribe on our YouTube channel, WHD Media. Visit our WHD website, whd.org.uk, for more inspiring events. WHD would like to greet all those celebrating their birthdays and special milestones this week. Happy celebrations. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. On behalf of WHD team, especially those working behind the scenes, WHD Chairman Dr. Abdul Basit Saeed, Director of Global Operations, Ms. Sarah Wilson, our 12 Honorable Secretary Generals, we thank you, our virtual audience from around the world, for joining us and supporting our show. This has been World Humanitarian Drive's Inspiring Millions Show. I'm Viva O'Flynn. Please join us again next week. We will have an interesting discussion with Associate Professor Dana G. Vera Cruz of the Philippines as we inspire the world here on Inspiring Millions Show. Thank you so much.